so pleasant in here.
The video can't hear this, but we're listening to something over the headphones. What is it? Welcome to My World? Welcome to My World. By who? Who does that song?
That was
Jim Reeves? Okay. 97845. Cindy is surprising us tonight with all these new songs, but of course the video folks can't hear them, so it doesn't make any difference. 978-454-4980 is our phone number. I'm finally hearing myself clearly through the headphones, which is always a good thing. Gentlemen.
Where?
My guests tonight, Mr. Bob LeBlanc, Mr. Kent Niebuhr, and Mr. John Tudors, they're all here at the same time because we are celebrating the 15th anniversary of Beneath the Surface on both television and radio. And these three folks, have been with me almost the whole time. Say maybe 12 years?
At least, yeah.
How's that?
Yeah.
12 to 15? Maybe 13 to the 15?
I think Bob did a TV show a little before I did, and then I hopped in on a few.
Yeah? Okay.
In Burlington.
Yeah.
When did we do that first?
It was around 2006, I think I remember doing a show about that early. Yeah.
All right. So we have had a lot of topics that we've gone beneath the surface on.
Yeah.
Gosh.
We had a few good ones. There was,
a lot
the
of good
one
ones.
on Mary was really good.
Yes.
The TV, that one. I remember the guys working the cameras like, damn, it's a good show, man.
There's a lot of really good topics. Tonight, on Beneath the Surface, we are talking about the notion of mercy without justice, the recipe for disaster. In one sentence or less, why is it disastrous, mercy without justice?
It's permissiveness.
Okay.
In other words,
it enables.
It enables bad behavior. It doesn't check any kind of bad behavior.
And it's not good for the people who you have false mercy upon.
Exactly. It's like
right.
a drug addict. If you just keep giving them drugs or just
yes.
not intervening or something like that, and they're just going to continue to spiral downward.
So we are hoping that in the church and in the world, in the scandals that we find in both places, that we won't just fall to this notion of let's have mercy on these people and forgive them, which of course is very important, but without calling them out and cleansing things from that need to be taken care of.
Yeah, I think for a long time justice has been muzzled.
Yeah.
And so now we need to unleash justice, not at the expense of mercy, but we need that union of the two that we should have had all along. And as you say, maybe we can generalize and say before the 60s, before Vatican II, there was a little too much justice and not enough mercy, or maybe a lot too much. And then the pendulum swung the other way. I think now we finally need to get it right.
To the point where truth has become the new hate word.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I like to, I created a word for myself called verophobia. I think a lot of people suffer from it today.
Yeah.
That there's a fear of truth. The college scene, this trigger. What do they call them? Trigger safe zones and
trigger warnings.
Trigger warnings and all of this stuff that people they just can't hear.
What's a trigger warning? I'm sorry, I'm out of the loop. What's a trigger warning?
You just said one.
It's basically.
I'm offended.
If you say something that's that people might be offended about, you have to warn them, I guess.
I'm offended that you mentioned that I'm offended.
I mean, all of this nonsense that's going on today on college campuses, but it's going on throughout all of society, that we fear truth today because so many people aren't saying it, aren't speaking it, and we are accepting a false narrative that gives everybody mercy without justice, and it's a false mercy, it's an enabling. And scandal, of course, it will have to erupt when you live this way, Bob.
It sure does. I think we see it with the Harvey Weinstein sort of thing that erupted, the Me Too.
The Me Too movement.
Yeah, well, we certainly had the era of sexual permissiveness starting in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And I think it really made victims out of women. The fact that you really didn't give women a good reason to be able to say no anymore, because it was expected that you would get what you want.
So in other words, throughout the centuries, since the dawn of mankind, men, because of their disordered desires of the paternal urge, seek to take advantage of women. Women have always said, have been the gatekeepers of their own chastity.
Right.
And they were, of course, the veto power, and they said no because they had natural and supernatural excuses to say no. But you're saying the birth control pill has taken away that natural excuse to say no. Is that what you're saying?
Right. You know, I know what it is to be a guy. I think I
Yes.
know what it is to be a sinful guy, and I know in the past, you know, you could say something like, "Hey, baby, I love you.
Yeah.
I love you with my whole heart, and I'll never get rid of you or do anything to hurt you or
Right.
anything like that," and mean that sincerely
In the moment.
in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then all of a sudden, you know, just like a child is with a toy that they were so interested in, was very new,
Yeah.
and something
Shiny,
like that,
yeah.
very shiny, and then all of a sudden you get bored or something like that. It doesn't have that shine anymore.
Eros without agape gets boring.
Yeah, and so you really hurt the woman. You made all these promises, and then you
Yeah.
just decided, well, I don't feel like that anymore.
In a sense, it's indirect. You know, people are gonna yell at me for this one, but in a very indirect way, it's a form of rape.
Yeah, I think one follows after the other. They calling the Me Too stuff. This is something well beyond
Yeah.
consent here. There's something closer to rape, even though maybe there wasn't a firm no that was said. There were definitely women who were in a position where
They were taken advantage.
they were taken advantage of.
Yeah, and sometimes it's difficult to know exactly where that line is.
But it used to
in
be much
judging it.
clearer.
Well,
That's
it
the-
used to be a
that's
whole
the
lot
point.
clearer.
And
well,
what we
as a
have-
society, we the line was at marriage.
Yes, consent comes with a ring.
Yes,
Exactly.
consent literally is consent in front of family and friends, and in a
God.
religious setting, if you're religious, in front of God. That's where the
and
consent
permanence,
is.
right?
Yeah.
Because what you're talking about, Bob, is having the best of intentions. What you're really getting at is permanence,
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you say that I can tell you I love you and I can make this commitment, but I can take it away at any time,
Yes.
that's there was no commitment. If
No.
if you have the option of taking it away at any time,
If that option
there
is
never
there.
was a commitment.
Morally, yes, that
Right.
is correct.
Because you're committing to say that you're committing to something temporary isn't a commitment.
It's an oxymoron. You can't do that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not. That's
And that when it
the
was
opposite
so
of love.
so like you said, with artificial birth control and with divorce, especially no fault divorce, it just obliterated marriage, and it basically, I almost want to say, institutionalized this quasi rape that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. The fornication culture really is indirectly a rape culture, and sometimes it's very difficult to know literally the difference between rape and non-rape.
Yeah.
Now, as we're seeing, as this Me Too movement is being played out. Well, with all of this abuse that has been going on in the secular world as well as the church, we see in this Me Too movement how both justice and mercy are violated.
Yeah.
Big time. Anybody want to elaborate on that?
Bob pointed to me. I was really just kind of had this blank thing. No,
I saw it in your eyes.
Guys have a nothing box.
Yeah.
I was right in that neutral spot right there.
Yeah, I could
And
tell
then
you.
you called me right out.
You were zoning out, but
I-
you heard everything I said. Though.
I did,
Yeah.
I did, and then I looked over, and then Bob pointed, and I was really on the spot.
Look, it's unjust, obviously, to abuse anybody.
Yeah.
Now, I will go further than that. It's unjust to abuse anybody even if they consent to it.
Absolutely.
That's the problem today. They've
Yeah.
gone halfway here.
Right.
I would
They're
like to-
recognizing abuse without consent, but they're not recognizing abuse with consent.
Right. I can't tell you how many times my
Yes.
kids will say, I'll say, don't do that to your sister. And they'll say, but she's laughing.
Yes.
That doesn't excuse it. It doesn't make it right.
Yes.
Here's the problem, Paul. Here's
Yes.
the real problem.
Where's the problem, Bob?
It's and you can see this. They say that pornography doesn't create any problems, but it really does. It really helps you objectify the other person. It's not love. You're treating the person. You're training yourself to treat the other person as an object,
Yeah.
not as another person. There's no love there. except maybe like you love apple pie or something like
Right.
that. That's an object.
It's an object, yeah.
But you,
Delicious. Yes.
delicious, but it is not treating them as they should be treated, as a person.
You depersonalize somebody even in your mind or heart, and of course Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount that when you lust after a woman, even if it's just with your heart, you're committing adultery in your heart. Very interesting, very sobering words for our day, isn't it? Intentionally lusting after women, of course, is what pornography is all about.
Right. There can be
Yeah.
no other object for pornography.
So in this sense, it is unjust to even look at, and of course, what the next step is, act towards women or anybody unjustly. And this is the virtue of justice you were speaking about before.
Giving a person what they are due.
Yeah.
I would just add to all this too. What's come to my mind is the lack of formation. There's a certain unjustness in the forming. For example, when you talked about how women were traditionally the gatekeepers, in a certain sense, they would hold men to a higher standard.
Yes.
And there's a certain deformation that's going on. Most women don't realize the power that they have simply by saying no.
Yeah.
They can hold men to a higher standard.
Well, because of the popularization of the birth control pill,
Oh, yes.
they fear that saying no will just have their man go to somebody else.
Oh, sure. And there's a false virtue behind that, too.
Yeah.
Saying, well, you know, the responsible people, well, they use protection.
Right.
That's safe. And, of course, that's not safe at all because you're putting yourself in danger. Even if you don't have a child immediately at that point, it's a deformed valuation that you're promoting.
What does it protect? It doesn't protect from broken hearts. It doesn't protect
No.
from self-worth. It doesn't protect from
No.
enabling yourself to give yourself fully to your future spouse. It doesn't protect yourself from a lot of things.
That's right.
We also have to say here,
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right what you said, John, about women having the power to say no and how powerful that really is. But men have to rise to the occasion. Because as you said, Paul, if a woman says no to me and I just move on to the next woman, all I'm doing is giving the woman a disincentive to say no.
Absolutely. No question about it.
So-
Men are just as much a problem in this as women
Exactly.
are. Yes.
So it's not like it starts with women and men will follow.
And by the way,
should be starting it also.
the birth control
what a
pill
man
is-
should do is come at the woman with a ring, and not come at her without a ring and say, hey, you know, why don't you sleep with me? The man should come at her with a ring and say, marry me,
Yes.
and go from there.
Birth control was created by a man.
Yeah, isn't that ironic?
Men, quote unquote, benefit, and I put it in quotes because they really don't,
Right.
but they think they benefit from being able to use women at their own, whenever
Right.
they
Become
decide.
less men.
What birth
More
control?
evil.
And in the results, they become less virtuous, become less manly.
Yeah.
They're unable to discipline themselves in a virtuous manner. They become, in a sense, they become wimps, and they think they're becoming more macho.
Right.
Well, the birth control pill is abuse in itself from a medical perspective.
Yes.
I think a year or two ago, there was a woman columnist in the UK who was complaining about men being wimps because they developed a birth control pill for men, and it had certain side effects. And she was going, "Now wait a second, guys. We've been suffering all along with possibility of stroke, with all these other things."
Heart attack. It's a class 1.
Breast cancer.
Breast cancer.
Carcinogen.
And she's going, well, why won't men put up with it? Well, I remember years ago when Janet Smith had contraception, why not?
That
And
tape, yeah.
That tape, and she mentioned the same very thing. You know, they developed, and I guess there was some sort of shrinkage in the testes, and they said, we're going to stop this male birth control pill right now.
Anything that affects males doesn't fly, but if it affects females in a negative
Absolutely.
way, well, we can experiment with that.
That sort of truth needs to get out there, I think.
Yeah, women.
Since
Something like
58, we
8
still have 2
women
minutes,
died
right?
or 4 women died.
Yes.
Men had a little shrinkage in their testes, and something like 4 women, 8 women died.
And they just reduced the dosage.
They just reduced the dosage.
And in
kept
reducing
going.
the dosage, it actually now acts as an abortifacient.
Right.
Because now it's, when there is conception, the birth control pill makes the uterine lining impossible for the tiny human being, the tiny embryo, to attach to. and they flush out of the woman without them even knowing it.
So
there,
instead
wait
of
a
a
minute, there are a
man-
lot of abortions that have occurred today. This needs to get out. That women don't even know about.
Instead of a man coming
Yeah.
at a woman with a wedding ring, he comes at her with birth control of
Yeah,
some form.
exactly.
And says, here, now you don't have an excuse to say
And
no
we
to
all
me."
wonder why there is abuse and why there's scandal today.
Yeah.
There you have it.
And I
At
would
least there's
I would
part of
say, tying this back to the topic at hand, that it's unjust.
Yeah.
What the pill does, it disrupts what should be rightly ordered, which is love of man and love of woman in marriage.
I want to thank everybody. Thank you, John. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Kent, for joining us tonight on our 15th anniversary of Beneath the Surface Television and Radio. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and thank you, video folks, for watching. You've been listening to Beneath the Surface. I'm Paul Murano. We'll see you again next week.